and welcome to another evening of frank conversation on hard copy, coming to you from our studios in Abuja. I'm Maokwe Ogun Yusuf. There's always plenty of optimism when we enter a new year, which is usually reflected in many of the new year messages we get from world leaders. However, some of these messages are realistic on the many dangers confronting our world today and press home the fact that without genuine and concerted action, hope for the future is but wishful thinking. Now, one of the striking messages which pushes this point is that of the UN Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, whose message partly reads, "We enter 2020 with uncertainty and insecurity all around, persistent inequality and rising hatred, a warring world and a warming planet. Climate change is not only a long-term problem, but a clear and present danger. We cannot afford to be the generation that fiddled while the planet burned." And so tonight on Hard Copy, we speak with the Minister of State for the Environment, Sharon Ikeazor, asking her what the plan is to confront this clear and present danger which confronts us all on the Nigerian front. Sharon Ikeazor, welcome to Hard Copy.
Thank you very much, Maokwe, and Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year. I mean, it's so easy to forget sometimes when you look at the challenges that already lie ahead,
yes.
And especially when you look at where you're coming from. But so far, so good. You don't seem to be shy of challenges. You were at PITAD, dealing with pensioners, and it seemed that they seemed very happy with your work. They're escorting you to the National Assembly when you're going to have a confirmation hearing for your role now as Minister of State for the Environment. How did that feel?
Oh, that was very heartwarming. And up till now, I still miss my pensioners.
You do?
Very nostalgic. That was one of the best jobs I've ever had.
Why was it such a challenge before then?
It was a challenge before then because people were not doing the right things. There were no consequence for actions. They didn't care about the pensioners. They were not doing their jobs. There was the issue of graft. In fact, let's say there was no accountability in the administration of pensions before then. But the laws, the enabling laws were there. It was just to be followed and enforced. And we were able to do that. And that's how PITAD is where it is today. And the pensioners are happy.
And you're confident that work will continue after you've left?
Oh yes, work will continue. We've actually put structures in place. In fact, incidentally, ICPC issued their 2018 report on structure, ethics and integrity. Out of 89 MDAs that they evaluated, PITAD came first.
Well, congratulations to you, and I know you must be very proud of the work you've done there. However, the reward for work,
it's more work.
It's more work, and I'm glad you know that. What is the plan for the Ministry of Environment?
Our plans for the ministry will be revealed by April of this year. We should be able to roll that out. We have all the policies in place. We have all the agencies in place. We have the projects that the ministry is doing to cover the environment from drought and desertification, afforestation, erosion, flooding, our coastlines, desertification, oil spill management as well. All these agencies are being looked into for us to strengthen them. And also the regulatory agencies of the ministry will be the key ones to drive the change we want in the ministry, because the laws are already in place. It's just to be implemented and enforced for those who breach any of our environmental laws.
Well, Nigeria did sign up to this 2015 Paris climate agreement.
Yes.
And we're supposed to be one of the drivers in Africa. Where are we with that plan to be one of the drivers? Because we know that we're one of the 6 largest emitters of greenhouse gases.
Yes, we are.
On the continent.
Nigeria is working on a nationally determined contributions, our NDCs, which we'll start implementing in 2020 as well. 2020 is the year of implementation. And we also have the climate change bill that is yet to be passed in Nigeria. The president is yet to assent to it, and we're about to do the advocacy and lobby for it to be assented. Because you see, the climate change bill is the bill that will give us the guidelines on how to tackle climate change. It's sad that Nigeria, being the country in Africa that most Africans look up to, still does not have legislation to back climate action. So that is one of the priorities of the ministry.
You talked about deforestation, for instance.
Yes.
We have recognized that as a problem. We've talked
Yeah,
about...
we're cutting trees, we're not planting.
Indeed, we
Yeah.
are. And now people are cutting trees not because they just wish to cut them.
No,
but
our
because
women need the
they
firewood
need
to
the
cook,
fuel.
so we have to provide them alternative.
We have seen measures to try to provide us alternatives. Cook stoves have been one plan that we've seen from one administration. It seems this administration is also inheriting that plan to provide cook stoves for rural women. However, not much implementation of that plan has come to fruition.
Trust me, that implementation will happen now that you have a woman on the seat. Besides the Ministry of Environment, the Ministry of Petroleum is looking into it. We have a lot of gas that we're just flaring. The cook stoves you're talking about will not use wood or anything. They're going to use gas. So, and we have to be able to fabricate them in Nigeria. We have Proda in Enugu.
Do we know why that plan did not work? Do you have a report? Because I know you just got there. I mean, it's less than about 6 months or so since you just got there.
Less than 6 months.
Less than 6 months.
I've asked for a report on that cook stove. Let me know what actually happened, where we're at, why it stopped. Because a lot of women are dying from using firewood, from smoke inhalation. If we can do that for the women of Nigeria, that would go a long way.
What about the Great Green Wall, which we were supposed to be, Nigeria was supposed to be planting to confront desertification, the fact that the Sahara was eaten further into Nigeria? It was supposed to come up with this. It was a big launch here.
Big launch. Great Green Wall is the same thing as the course of implementation. We're sitting down with all these agencies under the ministry.
What agency is responsible for that?
The Great Green Wall is an agency that is part of the Ministry of Environment. We have 7 agencies. Great Green Wall is one of them. The afforestation program they're meant to start, they've started in some states, but you bear in mind that federal government does not own land. It's the state governments that own land. So we'll have to rethink our strategy on how to carry out implementation. We cannot do it alone at federal level. We have to work with every state government to achieve that, because they are the owners of the land. We cannot start tweaking the Land Use Act now because we want to carry out afforestation or start planting trees.
How is that conversation going with the states? Because sometimes also we know that there is always, there's also the politics, especially if there are states that are in opposition to the federal government. How do you intend to manage that?
Part of what I intend to do is a lot of advocacy with the states. Climate change doesn't know political party, the same way poverty doesn't know political party. So let's put politics aside, just the way I put politics aside in pension administration and did what had to be done, is the same way we'll tackle it in environment. There's no politics about the environmental crisis that we're in right now. So I'm sure the states are ready to join hands with us, because they're all going through the effects of the climate crisis, the flooding in their states, the erosion, the desertification. A lot of states are losing land mass from all this. So there's not going to be any politics.
What would you say is the greatest challenge that we face environmentally as a country?
Waste management and lack of awareness, or would I call it understanding of the consequence of our actions in how we treat our environment, be it disposing of waste or digging a borehole, or channeling water. So we have to do a lot of awareness campaigns to people that to say, this action you take will cause this. Like for instance, you talked of erosion in Southeast. I went on a site visit of all the erosion sites. And I was looking, I noticed a lot of roads didn't have water channels, like gutters for rainwater to drain off. Those that had stopped midway. And I was asking a few of the contractors there, and they said, Madam, majority of the erosion we're suffering in Nigeria, most especially in the southeast, is caused by either no drainage or improper channeling of road construction. So those who construct the road don't do the channeling properly. The water goes out and it starts causing erosion all over. It's the same government that would come back to repair the damage they've caused. So we have to start making people responsible for their actions. So the same way, when we go cut trees or remove shrubs, we're loosening the topsoil. When the rain comes, it washes it off. So it's a lot of education and advocacy and enforcement that you do this. This is a consequence of this, and this is the price you will have to.
Are we dealing with this problem like we actually see it as a clear and present danger? Do we have that emphasis? I know that our challenges in Nigeria are many, from security to health to education. However,
environment is one of the causes of our insecurity. If you're not aware, like the Lake Chad that is shrinking, the herdsmen have to find water.
Indeed.
For their
so
cattle.
perhaps are we seeing it as a challenge and treating it as such?
We at the federal level are seeing it as a challenge. We're treating it as such, but we need everyone to be hands-on. We have to break it down as well for our people at the local level. You go to the village and tell a woman because of a climate crisis, the polar bear is dying in North Pole. She won't understand you. But if you tell her, you see why you didn't have this much yield of the crop you planted, is because of this climate change issue and the climate crisis. This is what we have to do. We have to start planting trees. We have to protect our environment for this to get better. If not, we'll be having the delayed rains or no rain at all, or we'll be having too much rain. Break it down in their own language and get them to realize that we are in a crisis. A lot of people are still not aware. When you're talking about climate change, they don't know what you're talking about. So it's our job to make sure Nigerians understand, because all hands have to be on deck.
I'm glad that you've drawn the link now between environment and security.
Yes.
And it also has, very adverse impact on health as well.
Oh, that's huge.
Indeed. The question is, sometimes some of these things are seasonal. They are cyclical. Take, for instance, we're about to enter the very, very hot season, especially as we enter in January now. The northeast trade winds will soon go away, which brings in the cool Harmattan weather that we all feel.
Yes.
But then the Harmattan season, the dry season itself will soon start biting. Water bodies will have dried up.
Yeah.
And usually by this time, you begin to see more incidences of farmers-herders clashes.
Yes.
About this period.
Looking for water.
As a result of the search for water.
Yes.
Do we already have a mechanism where we can predict that this is what is going to happen? We know usually when this problem starts, about the period it starts, and whether we've already put mechanisms in place to ensure that, the crisis, if it comes at all, is mitigated.
Yes, we are. And this, like I said as well, is what we cannot work on this alone at federal level. We have to work hand in hand with every state government. They all have to come on board on this. We have to provide water, educate our people, the herdsmen as well, respect the farmland you meet, the farmer, give access for them to pass. There has to be a coexistence. We've been doing this in the past, just that it's getting worse. Then again, we have to think of damming some of our rivers, creating man-made lakes as well.
These are long-term plans.
It could be short-term.
In the short term, what are we doing?
In the short term, what we can do now is just advocacy. To tell you the truth, it's
That's
advocacy.
not going to provide water for the cattle.
It's advocacy. The cattle are on the move. They're moving. They'll have to get water. Then Ministry of Agriculture, I know, are also trying to provide water in certain states for the cattle. But how many can they reach?
We take a moment now. When we return, we take on the problem of soot in Port Harcourt. Welcome back. You're watching Hard Copy, coming to you from our studios in Abuja. Tonight, we're beaming a light on our plan for the environment and what Nigeria has to do to avert imminent danger. Our guest is the Minister of State for the Environment, Sharon Ikeazor. Port Harcourt and the suit problem.
Yes.
It's been on for a while. I remember that the former Attorney General, God rest his soul, he's late now, was on this show, Hard Copy, and he did say that the state government then was threatening to sue the federal government because they thought that the federal government wasn't taking the problem seriously enough. They were the ones benefiting mostly from the resource of oil, which they felt was at the heart of the problem, but that not much was being done to stop the problem of soot.
You know, in the last conversation we had, we talked about consequence for actions, that we have to make people realize that. You find, once I came into the Ministry of Environment, the first things I needed to find out about was the Port Harcourt soot. We have an agency called NOSDRA, Nigerian Oil Detection.
Oh, spill detection.
Detection Agency,
yeah,
NOSDRA. Someone had brought to my attention that there was a fire at a Shell right-of-way in Bidere, in Ogoni land. The caption was, Ogoni land is on fire. I immediately contacted the DG of NOSDRA. Can you send people down there to find out what's going on? Within a day, he got back to me to tell me, Madam, the fire there is not from any Shell pipeline. It's from an artisanal refinery, an illegal refinery, that they had actually put in 6-inch pipes into oil pipelines, which they used to pipe oil into their refineries. And one of them was, one of the illegal refineries was burnt down by the JTF. He says, though, they're going to send aerial photographs when the fire goes down. The pictures he sent me, you will think it's Hiroshima, the devastation on the land. I now said, okay, are there other areas like that? He sent more pictures. The illegal refining is going on a large scale in the Niger Delta. Who are those doing the refining? It's the people of that area. They are committing ecocide. Ecocide is environmental suicide, killing the environment with their own hands. The same government will have to come back and clean up what you keep on doing. The monies that would have been used to develop the area, provide health facilities and better facilities for the people, government will have to use to clean up what they are doing. So we'll have to engage with the communities in the Niger Delta.
Let me take you off, because when you spoke about that issue, about 3 issues came to mind immediately. One is the capacity of NOSDRA, because sometimes we've been told that when the spills happen, that the agencies of government will still rely on those who, especially if they're multinationals and if they're places that they can't reach, will rely on the multinationals to transport them to the areas where the spills have occurred. So is capacity one of the issues you're hoping to address with NOSDRA, or has that been addressed sufficiently?
Oh, definitely. We'll have to address the capacity. Not only NOSDRA, we have NESRE as well, the Environmental Regulatory Agency, and we have the Nigeria Biosafety. And happily, I would say happily actually, the 3 regulatory agencies under delineation have been put under my supervision. And I feel that once we can build the capacities of, say, somewhere like NOSDRA, we've got the job done. What you said is correct. In the past, they would have to rely on the IOCs to test the integrity of the pipelines. So what we are going to do is build up NOSDRA, equip them, build their capacity for them to be independent, to monitor and regulate all this. Besides the fire incident, there was another incident the DG of NOSDRA now reported to me on his own, that there was a ship that capsized in a secluded area in, I think, the Atlas Cove or Takwa Bay area. The ship had been seized by the EFCC for a very long time because they had illegal AGO. This time it wasn't crude. So as it capsized, it now spilled in the water. the naval command in that area contacted NOSDRA. NOSDRA immediately made the report to me and gave the details. And I'm like, what is your collaboration with EFCC when they seize these vessels that you know contains crude, because we don't need to pollute our environment? Say there isn't much collaboration. I say, well, now there has to be a collaboration. So we sent a letter to EFCC notifying them of their seized ship that has capsized, and that NOSDRA and NIMASA, because NIMASA is in charge of our maritime, will have to meet and have a stakeholders engagement so that we know other ships that they have seized that contain either crude or PMS or AGO, so that we don't degrade the environment further.
Brings me to the second issue. You talked about ecosite being committed there. I mean, the environment being totally destroyed.
Yeah.
And this is not only by those who do artisanal mining, I think, which we'll address under the question of modular refineries, because people were hoping that with introduction of modular refineries, perhaps that would be able to address the problem of illegal theft of crude oil and the crude way of refining it in the Niger Delta. However, you know, it also beggars the question of how, when these illegal refiners are caught by the JTF, have there been a review of the manner in which, you know, they are handled? Because sometimes the JTF people also, will I say, contribute to the pollution which we see in the manner in which they destroy you know, these illegal refineries.
No, I understand. I mean, one of the issues we discussed with NOSDRA as well, it's how to have an engagement with the JTF and educate them on how to dispose of such waste, that they just can't burn like that and introduce fumes back into the atmosphere. So an engagement and a collaboration is going to go on. When they seize such refineries, NOSDRA should be contacted so that we do it in a regulated manner.
What about the question of modular refineries?
I support the, giving licenses for modular refineries, but the regulation has to be top-notch.
Considering just how big a problem this is in the Niger Delta, and the fact that, you know, people still want to get involved in the business of, you know, mining their own petroleum products.
Yes.
Shouldn't we be more aggressive about how we go about it?
Yeah, we ought to be. We ought to be, because I find also even the illegal refining that they're doing, if the amnesty program had really worked well and targeted the youth that it should target, I don't think they'll go into all this illegal refining.
Are you daunted by the challenges that we face environmentally as a country?
I wouldn't say I'm daunted. I'm a very strong optimist. It can be done. Nothing is impossible. Some of the gullies we cannot fill. All we do is to move our people through stronger land, where we can now teach them on how to protect that land, because we're losing the land to erosion and all that by our own activities. I mean, there was one I saw at in Kisi, 5 houses, Onisha. In the twinkle of an eye, I saw like 10 houses, 5 houses, yeah, sink.
Right there in your presence? Just
like that, zoom. No, there was a video they sent me, zoom. I now went to the site to see with my eyes. I was in shock.
Is the ecological fund safe now? Because before it used to be that sludge fund.
No. Of course, has
that changed?
That has changed. Of course, it's safe.
So you don't think
it's being managed by a woman.
You don't think their funding is going to be an issue for some of the grand projects that you have?
No, there shouldn't be an issue with funding. Even areas where the ministry can fund, the ecological fund can fund some of the erosion projects or flood projects or the certification projects for the ministry. After all, it's one country.
Well, we certainly will be getting back to you to see just how
how far we've gone.
Exactly.
No, I'm very optimistic. It can be done. Then again, we have the Nigerian youth who have keyed into the climate crisis and the climate change. learning and bringing up innovative solutions on how to tackle climate crisis, you know, resilient farming, climate smart farming, creating jobs from waste management and all. So by seeing the youth and engaging and talking with them, I'm very hopeful that Nigeria will be able to tackle our climate crisis.
Well, we would like to share your hope. I guess we'll start from the plan, which you say will come out in the first quarter of this year.
First quarter of this year.
We look forward to it, and we certainly will be tracking progress made, especially as the environment is concerned.
Definitely. Thank you very much.
Sharon Ikeazor, thank you for coming on Hard Copy.
Thank you, Malpe.
Well, that's where we leave the program tonight. We're hoping that as we enter the new year, we'll all spare a thought for the environment, dispose of that garbage properly, plant a tree, reuse the plastic bag or decline one at the market or the mall. The small things really do add up. Whatever you plan to do, let us know using the feedback handles showing on your screen. Thank you for watching. I'm Yusuf. Good night.